So you can sit in a chair or on the floor, any way that is best for you. If it's the first time you're coming, we do some breathing exercises to center ourselves, bring ourselves inwards, calm the mind, and then we do some talking about the Yoga Sutras, and then at the end we do a little meditation. So first, coming to sit tall. Bring the hands in any position that's comfortable for you, and in a way where you're able to relax the weight of the arms into the legs. Relaxing the facial muscles, the jaw, the shoulders, allowing the pelvis to feel heavy, the legs to feel heavy, so you feel like you have a solid sitting base. And slowly start to bring yourself inwards. As if you can feel the body from the inside out. And then start to bring your awareness to your breath. So for now, just noticing the natural breathing rhythm. Then slowly start to deepen the breath, making the inhales and exhales a little bit longer. Feeling more movement in the thoracic cage with each breath. If you know Ujjayi breathing, you can start to apply Ujjayi, making a soft sound with the breath, so you're able to hear the breath. So it will be a sound that calms the nervous system. And then trying to make the inhales and the exhales the same length. So if your inhale is to the count of 5, make the exhale to the count of 5. If you feel comfortable with this breathing, then you can try to double the exhalation. So for instance, if you inhale to the count of 5, exhale to the count of 10. If it feels like it's too much to do that, then just stay with the even breathing. We're going to do some Nadi Shodhana. So if you already know this technique, just go ahead and work at your own breathing rhythm. If you're unsure, then you take your hand like this, and bring your first finger and your middle finger inwards, and then bring the ring finger and the little finger together. And we use the thumb to close the right nostril, the ring finger to close the left. So I'll talk through a couple of rounds, but if you're working at your own rhythm, then just tune me out. So exhale completely. Close the right nostril, inhale through the left. Close the left nostril, exhale through the right. Try to do double the exhalation. Inhale right. Exhale left. That would be one round of Nadi Shodhana. So I'll talk through a second one. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Continuing at your own breathing rhythm. Breathing should always feel comfortable. If it's feeling strained, then shorten the length of the inhale and exhale. Just finish the round that you're working on. Bring the palms together at the front of the chest. We'll chant Om. Om. And then rub the hands together, warming up the palms. Place the palms over the eyes, opening up the eyes, and releasing the hands. So now you should be ready to talk about some complicated stuff. So we're following along in the Yoga Sutras. So if you have a copy with you, this is always really good to follow along because we're on Sutra 1.42. So 142, and it's getting into the different levels of Samadhi. So it's hard. Hard to understand this stuff that maybe we haven't experienced or not even sure if we experienced it or not. So I'm going to go through each word individually and give you one or two translations for each word. So the first word, tatra, means there, like, you know, there is. Shabda, word. Artha means meaning, but in this context is talking about an object. Jnana, which is knowledge. Vikalpaih, which is conceptualizations that we saw earlier in an earlier sutra, 1.6 I think it is. Samkīrnā, mixed or interspersed or mingling. Savitarkā, so this is with contemplation or with insights or with words. Okay, a lot of the commentators translate it quite differently, in fact. And then samāpattih, which means falling together or coinciding or simultaneous occurrence. It's the technical word for samadhi. Okay, what's happening in samadhi is things are falling together. Okay, so I'll read it like that in an English way that maybe makes some sense. So, the samāpattih, in which there is mixture of word, its meaning, and knowledge, is savitarkā samāpattih. Okay, so when it says its meaning, it's referring to the object. So the word that expresses that object. So if I say the object is computer, and then word is the word computer. Okay, so back in Sutra 1.17, so if you want to do some homework, extra studying, do any of you do that, by the way? In between, are you looking a little bit? No. Life is busy, right? One day maybe you will. So if you ever look back in Sutra 1.17, we were introduced to this kind of samadhi that's called samprajñāta samadhi. So it's a group of types of samadhis. So, and in that sutra, all Patanjali explained was that this kind of samadhi, samprajñāta samadhi, was accompanied with these four things: vitarka, vichara, ananda, and bliss. Okay, so vitarka, it means insights, but they're specific insights. They're insights into the gross realm. So there's the stula, which is the gross realm. It's things that we can see, we can touch, you know, they're very obvious to us. Okay, and then there's the subtle realm, which are things that we can't see, touch, hear, what's the other? Smell. There's another sense there, right? And so then those understandings on the subtle realm are called vichara. Okay, vichara are understandings that we may get on things that are part of the subtle realm. Okay, this is basically, a lot of the commentators say this is based on Samkhya. I studied mostly with Georg Fehrenstein, who has a little bit of a different model, but we're not going to go into all that. Ananda, which means bliss, and asmita, I amness, the sense of I am, whatever. Okay, so that's samprajñāta samadhi. Now the next few sutras are explaining this in a little more detail, the vitarkā and the vichara, the insights and the understandings that are coming from those two kinds of samadhis. The samadhis based on contemplation on something that is part of the gross prakriti, nature, and the parts that are part of the subtle prakriti, the subtle nature. That makes sense so far, right? Yeah. Okay. So if you look ahead and you see sutras up to 1.44, then these are the sutras that he's explaining samprajñāta and these specific forms of samprajñāta samadhi. And here he's calling them samāpattih because it is the actual technical term for what is happening when we're in samadhi. So, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything, distinguishing subtle differences. Yeah, okay. So let's look at this word savitarkā. So tarka means thoughts with words, okay? Thoughts with words. Vitarka is a kind of thought with words. Okay, so insights with words. I'll explain in more detail after. Sa, that is in the front, means with. So basically, savitarkā, with insights on the gross realm with regards to words. Okay? Therefore, samadhi or samāpattih, where insights with the help of words arise. Okay, so when we're doing this kind of contemplation, so if I'm going to contemplate on a computer, well, I'll look at my computer and I'll see, oh, there's a computer, right? Well, computer is something that a word that we use in English, but in other languages, it will have a different word to it. So that means that I've somehow related those two items in my mind. Computer equals, you know, this thing in front of me, right? So it's not completely true, right? The meaning, the word isn't 100% truth because somebody else in French, ordinateur, right? You can look at that and say, no, 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 that's not a computer. It's an ordinateur, okay? So, and in the Yoga Sutra commentary by Vyasa, he uses the example of cow, right? Because in India, cows are sacred. There's lots of cows, so you'll see that word used often. So he uses the example of cow. There's the name cow. There's the object cow. And then there's the knowledge regarding the cow. So there's these three parts. Okay? So these are three distinct parts. Can you recognize that? There's the name, right? Then there's the actual object. And then there's all this knowledge I might have about the cow. Oh, it's black and white. It has these kinds of horns, it's living in the field, it's owned by so-and-so, it produces milk, all these different knowledge about that cow or these cows or whatever. So we could divide that into 3 parts, right? Does that make sense so far? So what we usually do is we mingle it all together. So for me, if I hear the word cow, I might have a very conceptualized idea of what cow is based on how I've experienced cow, right? Somebody else who maybe lives in Nepal, for example, might have a very different conceptualization of what a cow is based on, you know, and by the way, they'll have a different name for it, right? So you can see that those 3 parts will be quite different, but then we mingle them up, we mix them up in our thoughts, right? Make sense? Don't hesitate to ask me to repeat, because I know this stuff is really kind of confusing. So, and it's taken me years and I still don't even know if I understand. I think I understand a little tiny bit, right? Okay, so basically these three parts are distinct, but we mingle them to be able to conceptualize it. Okay, so this would be vikalpa. This is a vritti. In Sutra 1.6, we saw that there were 5, Patanjali lists 5 vrittis. This is one of the vrittis, conceptualization or imagination. We kind of make things up in our head. Okay, so I'm going to read a quote from Hariharananda. So this is this version of the Yoga Sutras, which is quite amazing, I must say. So it's on page 93 if anybody has that book. If you intend to really study deeply, it's a good one. So, since in this process an unavoidable error in the shape of vikalpa is present, it is imperfect cognition and is therefore not the higher and true yogic perception. Okay, so I'll read it again. So, since in this process, the process of the name, the object, and the knowledge, since in this process, an unavoidable error in the shape of vikalpa, it's considered a fluctuation, is present, it is imperfect cognition, imperfect thinking, and is therefore not the higher and true yogic perception. Because it's a vritti and we're trying to calm those fluctuations of the mind. Okay, so I'll continue on, this is quoted from Hariharananda. So, where was I? It is, however, through this process that the yogin's knowledge is gained initially. Okay, so we gain some knowledge through this process initially. So I'll continue. Yogic knowledge derived through meditation with the help of words is savitarkā samāpattih. Okay, so if I want to meditate on something, and so the purpose of this, these talks, my goal is not to just make it academic and read books and memorize things. It's how to use this knowledge in our day-to-day life. Okay, so just for some of you who are maybe just coming in here. So yogic knowledge derived through meditation with the help of words is savitarkā samāpattih. So if I'm going to contemplate on something, so, you know, let's take the computer as I have it in front of me. So I'm going to contemplate on a computer. which actually would be very interesting for me because I really don't understand how all that technology works. It's like sometimes I sit back and I think, wow, it's really fascinating. Like, I know how to use a computer, but if ever I had to explain how that's working, like, how do you guys get in my yoga room here? You know, like, it's pretty fascinating actually. So if I wanted to meditate on this, I would meditate on it by maybe looking at the object, maybe bringing into that meditation any information I know about a computer. And in the daily, bringing it to daily life, maybe I would meet somebody who might, you know, show me diagrams and teach me different terms and explain me a whole lot about how the computer works, but I would have to really kind of get involved in it, right? Because it's not something very simple. So for me to really understand what that computer is, I would need words, right? Somebody would have to use words to describe that to me. And so then I would get some knowledge through those words. But I would think that somebody who has a very, very high level of understanding of the technology behind computers, Bill Gates perhaps, or somebody like this, that I think that they would get to the point where it's not only an understanding with words, right? They would have some deeper understanding of the processes that go behind a computer, and they might use words to explain it to us. But for them to have discovered this kind of thing, for example, they would have probably had to go beyond words, because first, maybe there was no words to describe some of these aspects, but they would have to go beyond words. Does that kind of make some sense? Right? And so in some sense, you could say that this is savitarkā samāpattih. So we gain this knowledge, right? They're gaining it with words, actually, because then we're going to go to nirvitarkā, where there's no words. Okay, I'm mixing up. I'm mingling. I'm mixing up here. Okay, so let's continue. When savitarkā samāpattih is practiced in respect of cow, all knowledge regarding the cow will be obtained, and it will come with the help of words. Example, whose cow, what sort of cow, etc. Okay, that was Hariharananda. Okay. Then we go into the next sutra, Sutra 1.43. Okay, so they're linked, these two sutras. So I'll go through word by word to start with. Smriti. So this means memory. Parishuddhau, which means purification. Swa, own, rupa, form. So svarūpa, you could say own form or essence. Shunyā means void or empty. Eva, as it were, or like. Artha, again, object. Mātra, only. Nirbhāsā, shining forth. And then nirvitarkā, which is without description. Okay, so we saw savitarkā, now this is nirvitarkā. So it's without description by words. So let me put that all together. So when the memory is purified, the mind appears to be devoid of its own nature, and only the object on which it is concentrating, the mind, is shining forth. This is called nirvitarkā samāpattih. So I'm going to reread that again. So, and it's this translation is again from Swami Hariharananda, and he puts a lot of extra words in there to make it make a little bit more sense for us. So when the memory is purified, the mind appears to be devoid of its own nature. Okay? And only the object on which the mind is concentrating is shining forth. Okay? So well, I'll explain in detail. This is called nirvitarkā samāpattih. So, when the memory based on the name of the object disappears, we gain knowledge of the object of contemplation without vitarka, so nirvitarkā, without insights based on words. So coming back to the example of the computer, so those very genius people who came up with how this can all work, well, I would say that they probably were in a sort of samāpattih, right? They were going into these concepts and going deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where they could understand some stuff. And I might be actually, you know, as I don't really know a lot about computers, I might be also going into the subtle realm, you know? So I apologize for my ignorance on how a computer works, but maybe there's some subtle realm stuff there, not just gross realm. And right now we're talking about the subtle realm, the gross realm of prakriti, not the subtle realm. So, but does that make sense? When we get into something like this, we start to understand it, but we understand it from somewhere way deeper, that there aren't the words attached to it. So going back to the idea of cow. Okay, so I could be gazing at the cow, and right now I'll be gazing at the cow and I'll be thinking, oh, it has some small hairs, oh, it has 4 legs, it has this color, it smells like that, it eats this, all these kinds of different things, and it's an animal, I'd be putting all this stuff onto it. But if I keep my contemplation on that cow, then at some point, the deeper I go, the more I'm going to understand the truth or the reality of it without having to describe it with words. Okay, and so they say that when that happens, you're really understanding the object. Okay, so Vyasa, this is a quote from Vyasa, the first commentator of the Yoga Sutras. Consequently, the knowledge acquired by a yogin in a state of nirvitarkā samadhi is uninfluenced by any other mode of cognition than direct perception. Okay, so now I don't have my ideas there. I don't have my ideas. So let's say I use a deity, and I'm going to try to use my deity as my meditation object. So maybe I'm seeing the deity, I've heard some stories about what the deity means and all these kinds of things. But if I continue in my contemplation, which turns to meditation, which turns into the layers of samadhi, at some point I'm understanding it without any words. So, and this will be considered direct perception. Okay, so this would be correct perception, direct perception, which is different from inference, for example, right? So the cognition seems to lose its own nature and becomes the nature of the object. Okay, so for instance, my mind isn't thinking at all, it just becomes that deity, or it just becomes the concepts of the computer, you know, again, I'm going more into the subtle realm, it just becomes the cow. Okay, so my dog is around here chasing flies. She's a bit distracting. Then this is a quote from Hariharananda. So, knowledge derived from inference, testimony, and ordinary direct perception, and is mixed with words, is not pure. Okay, so we were talking about purification of the memory, right? So in my memory, I have all those ties, right? And we don't even know where all this comes from, right? So it's something interesting so it's free from vikalpa, from those 5 vrittis. So it's interesting because what we do, we're brought up, we brought into the world, and I'm a mother, so I know first thing you do is mommy, daddy, baby, you know, and like rattle, bottle, you know, you start giving automatically names to things. And then slowly, as they're growing, you're giving them, oh, this means, you know, this and this and this. They go to school. This means this and this and this. They talk to their friends. And we kind of accumulate all this learning, right? Which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's very, 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 very different from yogic learning, right? Because this is kind of like fed into us, right? We're spoon-fed this. We're given all this. And so pure, if it's pure, the purity, the purification of the memory means all this is let go of, and then I just understand. Okay, it's hard to imagine, but if you've been ever like doing maybe some deep studies, when you're studying the Yoga Sutras, for instance, or you sit in meditation and you're kind of contemplating something, because what I found interesting about all these layers of Samadhi from Patanjali, first of all, when I first learned the 8 limbs of yoga, then Samadhi, it's just that concentration, you know, we withdraw our senses, and then we get into concentration, we get into a meditation where that means there's less going back and forth. Concentration, I have to keep bringing my mind back, bring it back, bring it back. And then meditation, there's less of that. And then absorption, samadhi means I'm one with this, right? And then when I started studying the Yoga Sutras with Georg Fehrenstein, I realized there's all these different layers, which really makes sense because it seems like a far-fetched place to automatically just go into these really high levels of samadhi. Hariharananda translates samadhi as contemplation. And this can also be kind of confusing because different commentators translate everything in different ways. So, but then when I started looking at it deeply, it kind of makes sense. How can this mind of mine that has been filled up with all these names, all these ideas, all this knowledge, how can I just suddenly let it all go, right? For me, that wouldn't be possible unless I'm going into a dullness or a daze or I'm deep sleep or something like this. But samadhi isn't about being in dullness, right? It's about having this complete awareness, because we can go into a meditation and feel we weren't there, but sometimes it's just we've nodded off, right? Right? Suddenly you fall forward and then you're, oh yeah, I wake up. So it really makes sense. So first I need to kind of purify my mind and allow my mind to let go of all that stuff that has been filling it. And if you think about it, it's kind of making sense in the fact that I want to understand things from just deep inside, right? So if I want to, Trying to think of an example here. If you have one, just shout it out. Because I tend to go to more the, okay, let's say I've decided that I've been taught that growing up means being an adult means having a job that pays decently, having a career, a profession, having my own apartment, maybe having a partner, maybe having children, right? So this could be some ideas that are there, but we don't know if they're ours, right? Does that make sense? I don't really know if those are mine or not, because by the time you're 25, for example, you've been filled up a lot, right? If you've went through your education process and then college or university and all your interactions with the environment and with society and others. So it's very hard to separate what is really the truth there. So we want to first get into being able to do this with the mind, right? Get rid of the words, right? First, discover things with the words, get some insights, then let go of those words and really understand to purify our mind. So this will be the highest truth in respect to that object. Does that make sense? The next two sutras will be similar. I'm not going to go into them now because I want to do the little meditation on savitarkā and nirvitarkā, which are based almost the exact same, except for your object of meditation is on the subtle realm. So maybe a certain thought, right? Or maybe even the sound, a sound that isn't a word sound, okay? Some things like this. Okay, let's do a little meditation. And my idea for this meditation was to have an object. Now, I don't know if you all can think of an object or if you have something close by, like what could be interesting is a candle, right? This is something easy to meditate on. Or if you have a deity that means something to you, because you don't want to meditate on a deity that doesn't mean anything to you, right? You're not going to get you won't be able to first get the insight with words, right? So does everybody have some idea of some sort of object? You could maybe use a plant, for example, right? Because if we were outdoors, this could be really nice because you could meditate on a tree, on a mountain, a field, a river, the sea, something like this. Maybe even a photo, you could use something like that. You feel, but you want to choose something that feels kind of dear to you, right? Rather than me just filling you up with something. Okay, does everybody have something? And just put your thumbs up. Okay, okay, good. So close your eyes. I'm gonna get my thing. This is my meditation. Okay, so you can place it in front of you. Close the eyes, but have them just very slightly open so that you feel like you can kind of block out anything around in the periphery of that object. And you can turn away from the computer, or, you know, as long as you can hear me, don't worry about it. You might not want to have the screen in front of you. So first starting by turning inside. I like to always start a meditation by first calming my body and my breath. I feel it's more effective. So find a comfortable seat. Allowing the pelvis and the legs to feel heavy. Notice the inner vibration of your body. So if you go inside, you can feel, it's almost like you can feel the cells moving, or the atoms. Forgive me again for my ignorance in science. You can feel this vibration throughout the body. If you pay attention, if you take a few moments, a few times through the day, you'll notice that that vibration is changing depending on the activity. I find it, for going into meditation, I find it easier to do so when I can calm that vibration. Have the vibration be calm, but also attentive, awake, clear. Not dull, not heavy. If you do a few conscious breaths, this can help make the vibration more calm. And softening the facial muscles, the jaw. Start to allow the mind to settle, clear out. You can have the sense that you're kind of falling into the brainstem. Once you feel like the body, the breath, the mind are somewhat calm and clear, you can open the eyes just a fraction so you can see your object of meditation. You don't have to see it very clearly. It can kind of be a little bit blurred. Try to focus on it. For now, you can use some words to describe it inside. They don't have to be words that describe the physical aspect. It can also be words that describe the aspect that's harder to feel, like peaceful, calm, enlightened, or any other words. And I'm not going to talk anymore so that I'm not disturbing your meditation. the palms together. Chant Om Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste.